Sure. Okay.
Well, everyone, welcome back to a very exciting episode of the Storybox podcast. Today, my friends, I'm delighted to welcome someone who many of you have been requesting and asking me to get her on my show. And I'm so grateful that she did say yes. And I cannot wait to dive into her amazing research today with you all. Her name is Jennifer Bilek or Bilek. Did I get that correct, Jennifer? Bilek.
Bilek.
Bilek. I was practicing for ages. Had to make sure that I got it correct. Jennifer, instead of me regurgitating or sharing all of the incredible things that you do in the world and all the research that you've been involved in that many would be very familiar watching this, would you be willing to share who you are, what you do, and why you do it?
Sure. Um, well, first and foremost, I'm an artist. I'm a painter. Um, and I knew that about myself very, very young, probably 12 or 13. Um, I was always very creative, but I found my soul in painting at that age, and I never stopped. Um, and it's been an absolute gift to my life. I couldn't be luckier in that regard. Um, and beyond that, I'm a writer. I'm a political activist. I've campaigned for the rights of women. I've campaigned for the health of the environment. Um, I've done a lot of social work. I have been a voracious reader my entire life. I'm an autodidact. I've never been to a university in my life. Um, it's probably one of the qualities that I like best about myself, because I'd be absolutely insufferable if I had any kind of university education. But my intelligence, I feel, is very grounded. It's very rooted in how shall I say, a blue collar upbringing and the natural world, and a genuine care for humanity. Yeah. And so now people would call me gender critical. I don't know if I'm exactly that, but I am researching now, and have been for the past decade, um, the intersection of technology, what people call transgenderism, what I call the synthetic sex industry, and the market, how the market is driving um, people's dissociation from biological reality, and how they're dissociating because of it. So yeah, that's kind of like who I am.
Well, welcome so much to the Storybox podcast. It's really a pleasure to have you here, and I'm
Thank
sure
you.
we'll touch on all your research in just a moment. But I guess my very first question for you is, how are you doing? How are things in your world currently?
Well, I feel pretty blessed. You know, right now I'm sitting in a hotel room very close to the ocean, 4 blocks from the ocean, and I have people in my life that love me, and I have really good, important work that I'm doing, and yeah. For me, having important work to do in the world is just, it's a kicker, man. It's a kicker to be here, to be human, and to have all these things to do and to share with other people. And, you know, it's good. It's a good life.
I agree with you on the being blessed side of things. I think my handle, my tagline in all my emails is be blessed. And it's just sort of like a reminder for people that there are an enormous amount of blessings in the world to be received by each and every one of us. And then we should never take any of those blessings for granted, even though I don't know about you, Jennifer, but I have taken them for granted. But that's just the process of life sometimes. And I guess with all of your writings and your interest levels, you did touch on the fact that you do write about gender, or you're gender critical, as they say nowadays. Why is this subject important to talk about? Why is gender becoming such the norm to talk about nowadays?
Well, I mean, I don't really like the fact that people are obsessing over gender when the more important issue is sex
Mm,
and its dissolution, its corporate, technological, political, linguistic, and material dissolution. I think this is of paramount importance because we are rooted in sex. We are rooted to the biological environment by sex, and this is part of why it's being deconstructed. So this is the really important conversation that we should be having. But most people are still talking about it on the level of gender. And it's a very confusing word because it means different things to different people. As a feminist, a woman who has campaigned for women's rights, I understand gender from the aspect of sex role stereotypes that are imposed upon us, where women actually get the shitty end of that stick because we get all the non-active qualities and we have to demur to men. Now, conservatives would probably say, these are propensities that are sex related. Women are more relational because they have children, and such like that. I never have enough good examples of what I'm talking about. Yeah, so there's that, and I think that there are biological propensities for men and women, and I think that people don't always fit into those propensities, and I think that's fine.
mm.
Rock stars, musicians, artists, have always sort of played around with stereotypes, sometimes adopting the roles of the opposite sex. In the 60s, we had men running around in flowered shirts and long hair, much to the horror of their fathers, who were, running around in what were those hats called that I love so much? The fedora.
Oh, the fedoras, yeah.
Oh, I miss the fedora.
I love the
I
fedora.
really do. Oh, me too. Me too. So yeah, people have been doing that because strict role stereotypes are obnoxious. They're constricting, and people want freedom, and especially the youth. Youth are naturally rebellious, and they're looking for themselves, and that starts to happen around puberty. When they start to become adults sexually, and so they play around with that, and that's all normal, and I think it's good, and I think it's fine. I don't see anything wrong with that. But now, as technology advances, they are picking up on that element, that rebelliousness. They're rebelling against sex role stereotypes, but they're also picking up on a corporate agenda to basically dismantle sex, reproductive sex, and turn it over to the market, to the to the tech sector, the medical tech sector. Yeah, I mean, men's intrusion into women's reproductive capacities has been happening at a breakneck pace anyway. And this is just, you add this fetish of adult men, autogynephilia, and it's really, I mean, we're getting into to the point where they're exploring wombs for men, not only for them to experience birth, which is just the most outrageous, most outrageous thing you can possibly think of, but also to keep those wombs in men so that they can have the experience of menstruating. So females, socially, linguistically, and in material reality are being assimilated into men. They're being like erased. And this is why, because when reproduction is given over to the medical tech sector, you don't need male and female. And this is the direction that they're going. Now, this started out as a fetish of adult men, a compulsion, a sexual compulsion to own womanhood for themselves. There was transvestic fetishism. Originally, men used to wear women's clothing and adopt their mannerisms and group together and perform these stereotypes and what they thought women were.
Mm.
And and they created groups, to do this because they couldn't do it out in public. Well, then, medical tech advanced to the point where they could make reasonable synthetic simulacrums of women's biology, and men started to adopt that as well. Transsexualism. So we graduate from transvestic fetishism to transsexual fetishism. So, and fetish is really, it's an objectification and it's a compulsion, and it usually escalates. So you have this fetish, and the object of this fetish is womanhood. And this actually advances in our culture at the same time that pornography enters the culture. And I'm talking about pornography industry. I'm not talking about naked pictures of women or naked pictures of men, blah, blah, blah. But as an industry, like Playboy magazine was the first magazine that brought pornography and the sexual objectification of women for entertainment for men into the home. So then it becomes an industry. And it happened within a year of the first American man running off to wherever he went to get his surgery to present himself as a female and then come back to America and be celebrated. This was 1952, 1953. Christine Jorgensen was his name, or his adopted name. And so these two institutions, really, these two industries come up together in the culture. And as they escalate, they become more and more extreme and bizarre. And they're driven by profit.
Mm.
So you have more men adopting these surgeries, getting these surgeries. And you have more and more depraved pornography. And what I mean by depraved is it's more objectifying, it's more based on degradation and humiliation instead of just, oh, isn't she a sexy woman kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And all of the porn that's men are watching in private is pushed out into the culture because they cannot be stimulated by the same porn for eons. It has to change, it has to be amped up. So the porn that they're watching in 1950s, 1960s, 1970s is all driven out into the culture. So now you can watch like Megan Thee Stallion, ride around on a music stage and perform all these sexual activities, as well as other music stars. And, you don't have too many like Joni Mitchells anymore. You don't have too many Patti Smiths anymore. You don't have women out there, performing, music, just performing music. They're performing sexual, music also. So or they're sexualizing themselves and performing music. So yeah, so that porn is pushed out into the culture, and then the porn that they're watching, you know, in private becomes more and more depraved. So yeah, and the industry in transsexualism advances and advances and advances because, you know, more men are choosing this, and porn is supporting it, the objectification of women, the entitlement to women's bodies, men's entitlement to women's bodies for entertainment, for sexual pleasure, for kink. And so these two things are coming up together, and the market drives them. And the medical industry is, you know, gotten pretty good at making synthetic simulacrums of other people's sex, right? So now they've turned humanity into a set of Lego, you know, Lego dolls, basically. And this is why sex is being promoted as it's actually on a spectrum now. It's not binary, it's not male and female, it's, you know, women can have penises, men can have breasts, and, you know, and all this new lingo and this whole gender stuff. It's because they're cutting us up for the market.
Yeah.
Under capitalism, you know, you have to, you know, interject here at any time because I'll just run amok.
No, it's all good. I'm listening. I've got so many questions that I want to ask you. I guess my first one to interject with, and it may sort of like flow on with everything else that you want to say, and feel free to talk for however long you want as well. You mentioned the technology and you got all these organizations and companies that are really involved with this, and you got the medical industry that are trying to, I guess, make men experience birth and menstruation and all that sort of stuff. Do you actually foresee that happening down the line? Or because the complications to even transplanting a female womb into a male body, I mean, they haven't been able to do it successfully yet because of male body wasn't designed for any of that. And I can't imagine the surgery involved to change the structure of a male pelvis and male internal organs to even fit a female womb. And then it also begs the question of the ethical issues with that. Whose womb are you going to be using? Are they going to create one artificially? And does that also like the female eggs? What are you going to like? Where are you going to get those from? They're going to be artificial as well. I mean, there's just so many questions. Have you found any like answers to any of this within your research? Big question, I know.
No, I don't think it's possible that that's going to happen. I think it's absolutely insane. I think it's really, really harmful and unethical and amoral.
Yep.
To even think about doing these things. And I think that, you know, and a lot of people will say to me sometimes, well, they'll never get to that point. You know, as if that matters. What matters is stopping this. What matters is how people are being harmed already from just the little bit that they've already done. I mean, they've shoved this out into the culture, you know, really not more than a decade ago. I mean, it was happening, but it wasn't really shoved in our faces until a decade ago. And then, you know, the promotion of this, the marketing of this has been absolutely relentless to the point where it's really almost like cult indoctrination, and certainly is for the youth who can't understand what they're looking at. And the harm to society, which is organized around our sexual dimorphism, is it's absolute chaos already. I mean, one woman died in a hospital because she was pregnant and they thought she was a man. She didn't tell them. You know, detransitioners, I mean, they call themselves detransitioners. They've never transitioned to anything in the first place. They've had, basically a medical assault on their sex.
Yeah.
That's been allowed to happen. This is absolutely criminal. This is criminal behavior that's going on out there by the medical establishment. And they're coming forth in droves now, with all sorts of harms and regret, harms to their body that they cannot correct now. And yeah, so it's already so disruptive to society. I mean, to do this and to try and force language changes in the way that they're doing this is just, it's not going to go well. It's not going to go well. It's like trying to colonize the whole world and, steal all its resources and never give back and expect that things are going to go well, And now we have millions of tons of radioactive water going into the ocean at Fukushima because they don't know what to do with the waste. We've already had nuclear disasters. We've had massive, massive oil spills. We have gyres of plastic in the middle of the ocean that we don't know what to do with. And our clean water has been stolen from us and is now being sold back to us in plastic bottles that wind up in these gyres or wind up in our system. There's dioxin, plastic in every mother's breast milk on the planet now. So this is kind of like, this is like that, except it's us. It's not the planet anymore. Now it's us. We're being colonized, basically, for the market. We're being taken apart, disassembled for the market. We're much, much more profitable as genes, as breasts, as penises, as sperm, as ovaries, as wombs, etc. And all of this is coming at us. And see, this is what people don't really get because they're not really looking at this part. But this is all happening at the same time that we've left the digital age, we've left the information age, and we've come into the age of biotechnical manipulation of humanity. Genetic engineering, CRISPR, change your DNA, artificial reproduction, technological reproduction, growing babies in a dish, stem cell research, taking the stem cells off of a mouse's tail and growing embryos in a dish or whatever they're doing. I mean, they're just doing so many incredible things. And, at not even just the, reproductive level, but, you have robot soldiers, you have, incredible prosthetics, which is really amazing. I mean, that's a really good thing. But none of these techniques are going to be up to us moving forward, like what they do with them. I mean, just look at your planet. Just look at what's happened to your planet. You'll see how much ethics takes apart in all these developments. They don't. It's like, elites, the very, very elite, they live in bubbles. They live in bubbles of their own creation, and they don't understand what's going on in the rest of the world. It's all about this extreme narcissism and sense of entitlement to everything, including life.
I think going back on your point regarding this overtly sexual world that we are living in, technology has only enabled that or enhanced it so that we have more and more access to being able to see this kind of material, which is doing a lot of damage to our finite brains. And there's also the thought process surrounding just because we can do something doesn't mean that we should in fact do it, because there's implications regarding if we were to do something that is going to harm not only ourselves, but also the planet and everything else around that. But it's just like, oh, we need to do it anyway because we've got the ability to do it. No, hold on a second, slow down. You've got to look at not only the ethical, but the moral implications. And I know people go, well, forget the moral implications. That doesn't mean anything. That's just like it's a ridiculous point of an argument. I've heard people say that to me. It doesn't mean anything. And I go, well, what about the ethical implications of some of the things that you are proposing? I mean, the fact that the medical industry is chopping up and mutilating and castrating the next generation of young people, they don't see that as an issue. They see that as a good thing, because now the narrative has shifted into this feeling is good somehow. So it's rather interesting to me how you have these people that have taken the Hippocratic oath and gone, we will do no harm, but yet somehow they've convinced themselves by doing this, it's actually going to be good for the child, and the level of narcissism that is involved with it. Like, I'm trying to figure out, I don't know about you, Jennifer, but like narcissism we've seen is definitely on the rise. But why is that the case? Is it mainly because they've gotten a huge incentive to be more narcissistic, or is the fact that human beings nowadays have been indoctrinated somewhere that narcissism is in fact good? Does it make sense?
I think so. I think the biggest problem is that we're so ensconced in technology now. I mean, I talk a lot about transhumanism, and how the issue that I research relates to transhumanism and is sort of an on-ramp to, or a grooming process for transhumanism, and lifting us out of our humanity. But we're so ensconced in technology, that we grow further and further dissociated from each other, from connection to each other, connection to land, connection to our children, connection to the people we were born to. Um, TVs, when we had TV, at least when we had TV, all people were getting the same news all over the place, right? So you could sort of have a similar reaction to it. But now you have so many different versions of so much different news all over the world, and so much of it is negative news, because negative news sells. So you're having this come at you 24/7. As much as you're on your computer, you're having all this information just thrown at you, and the most horrible shit going on in the world is just, it's in your face 24/7. And like you said earlier, we're not really built for that. So what we do to cope with that is to dissociate, because it's too much, it's traumatic. And the same with porn, violent porn. I mean, we weren't built for that. Sex was for intimacy. And now it's being, dissociated from that, that bonding process. It's just sex. Yeah. It's just having a good time. It's just getting off, So, and then when we, planes came into the picture, and communities were just completely fractured because people could move all over the place, not just maybe to a neighboring state, but across the ocean or across the continent. So you're not growing up with your family anymore, or the people in your tribe, your grandparents, your cousins. You're not you're not building the same kind of history with these people. You're all separated from one another. Right. And so then you get together once a year at Christmas, and you throw your lives up on each other, and that's supposed to be meaningful. After you consume a lot of gifts that you've bought at the store. It's like, wait a minute. So as technology advances, we don't realize how much it's pulling us all apart, and it's dissociating us even from ourselves. Most people think, food grows at the supermarket. I mean, it's remarkable, right? They don't have any connection at all to their food. If you had to live off the land, one summer, if the local, I don't know, supermarket closed, you're just shit out of luck.
Yeah.
You can't support yourself, and you're an animal on a planet where every other species can support itself off the land, right? So
So
you see where I'm getting.
we've become a soft species. We've made ourselves really soft, and I think that is a tragic thing. Like men nowadays, they don't feel like they need to work. Women as well, they don't feel like they need to have kids or raise a family. There's a lot of messages that are being sent out into the world today of, hey, you don't need to be this way. You can be this, you can be that. Well, hang on a minute. Let's actually do some critical thinking about this. Life's not just all about sunshine and rainbows and this feeling that I get 1 minute from the next because my feelings change. You can't be solely reliant on how I feel and just go along with how you feel regarding a certain topic or issue. It doesn't work like that. You got to be a little bit more level-headed and grounded in a sense of reality. But I guess the transgender narrative has been one that is not grounded in any sense of reality one bit. They're trying to remove reality, facts, science, logic, sex-based facts, biology, all those things. They're trying to remove it from the very fabric of existence because it shows the truth and they can't handle the truth. They much rather live in this fantasy delusional world, but they're trying to make it so that everyone else has to follow along with them, which I think is just a bunch of insanity. But yet it's now classed as discrimination. It will be in Queensland, Australia next year to say the definition of what is a woman, an adult human female. You won't be allowed to say that because it's going to be classed as discrimination. And I'm going, how is that good? It's not good. So don't force me to go along with it. But they will. And government level authorities and you name it, they're at that point where they're just going, we need to be all inclusive, but they're actually excluding people that are living in a reality world and they're replacing it with delusion.
Exactly. Well, Yuval Harari, who works with Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum, espouses that very thing that, we're creating a virtual reality that we're overlaying on the natural world, which is absolutely true. We're already in that virtual world, through our technologies. But they want to really just take it to the zenith, take it wherever it will go. I mean, personally, I feel like we don't really have, the earth doesn't really have the resources left to continue this pipe dream of theirs, this like techno utopia. It takes a lot of, material resources to build tech, and to sustain it. And the earth is not, it's not infinite, it's a planet and it has, finite gifts to give us. And I think it's getting a little cranky now. Yeah. And I think people are getting a little cranky with this bullshit, it's it's complete corporate hokum. It's just hokum. It really is. And it's been captivating. They've created a myth, of a sort of subset of humanity called transgender people. They're so sparkly and special. They're so different. They're not like the rest of us. They transition their sex. Woo! It's like it's a corporate hallucination. It's like a hologram. You know what I mean?
It's like they're on psychedelic drugs. Magic mushrooms.
And even the people that are just resisting this whole thing, they still want to hold on to their trans friends. You know what I mean? Like they're like people that have these organizations that are, promoting people who attempt to disown their sex reality while claiming to resist this agenda of people who are attempting to disown their sex reality. It's like, oh, come on. I feel like I'm hallucinating.
They want it
It's
to
just
look like you're the actual dumb one. Like, am I crazy for thinking this? But in reality, no, I'm not crazy. They're the crazy ones. So, but
exactly.
it's honestly, I think it's amazing how they've managed to do that. Like, make people think like they're the crazy one for believing in facts and science.
Oh, it's fascinating, isn't it? It's fascinating. I mean, when you see through it, it's fascinating. Otherwise, it's just people are captivated. They're
Yeah.
indoctrinated. It's been going on for a decade. The extreme, propaganda, constant. You can't turn around without hearing this word. Transgender, transgenderism. And all of a sudden, these kids are falling out of the sky, these transgender children. It's
Ah,
like, I mean, a farmer could make bank on these kids,
yeah.
years ago. They would have been doing it,
Yeah.
you know.
They're doing it now.
It's funny. I mean, if it wasn't so tragic, it would be hilarious.
Yeah.
But it's tragic. It's tragic. These children are being mauled, medically mauled. I mean, it is just, it's hellacious.
Mm.
I don't deal too much with that aspect. I mean, because I can't really stomach it. I mean, I have friends who are dealing with that aspect of it, and they've cried.
Yeah.
Grown men cried over this. You know, and the parent stories are just. I mean, that's just. I can't even go there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just so heart wrenching. It is so. It could break you. I mean, as a parent, it's just so psychologically damaging to children and parents and to families. It's just beyond.
It goes to that level of you're trying to comprehend how that parent must be feeling if their child has associated themselves with this delusional lie, and knowing what the parent can do in that moment, which is not really much. It's like they're taking away the parent's right and responsibility to even be a parent in the first place. And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
going, that is just pure evil in all its form, to think that the parent is somehow abusing the child by wanting them to live in reality with them, wanting them to
Right.
have a healthy existence and a healthy upbringing. That's not fair. That's actually cruel to allow a child to live in a delusional reality that they've created for themselves, or that the transgender mob has decided to create for this child to believe in. And it's just, I struggle to even comprehend it. And I've heard stories and I've seen things that I'm just going, what the hell is actually happening? How can you believe in this stuff? Like, it's just, for me, I don't know. I've spoken with I've spoken with Helen Joyce. I've spoken with Dr. Miriam Grossman. I've spoken with all these incredible people, and even they struggle to explain this, but yet somehow we're forced to go along with it. I'm going, who, how do we end it?
Well, they're really trying to build like a singularity, like a virtual reality. This is
Yeah.
what's going on here. I mean, how are you going to get the next generation to completely divorce from biological reality? It won't happen via the internet just completely. They have to be dissociated physically. Physically, you have to break the boundary, the sex boundary,
Yeah.
to have them stop identifying with their actual biological reality. And this is what's going on here. In order to meld humanity with technology more integrally than it already is, you have to break this bond, and it's a long game.
Mm.
But, sterilizing a whole lot of young people, attaching this to a human rights movement for people who are same sex attracted, puts people who will need technological reproduction under the same umbrella. And in fact, many of the the rich men, the billionaires driving this ideology in the medical sector, in the tech sector, are funding both the gender industry, gender clinics, of which there are now over 400 in North America, where there was one in 2007. This is to medically assault children's sex, these clinics, not even mentioning the adult clinics. And I forgot where I was going with that thought. I apologize.
You got all the billionaires that are funding all of
Yeah,
these.
are also they're also investing in technological reproduction, like
Yeah.
Mark Bezos, for instance. Mark Bezos, is it Mark Bezos? Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
I gotta try to keep all these names in my head. But Jeff Bezos of Amazon, he's got a fertility platform on Amazon, and he's they're selling hormones, cross-sex hormones, wrong sex hormones on Amazon. And he's invested in a gender clinic, $166 million in a clinic in Brooklyn that are, medically assaulting children's sex. Then you have Mark Benioff. He owns Time Magazine. I think there have been like 5 people on the cover of Time Magazine now who have sought to disown their sex. And this is promoted on this platform, Time Magazine, as progressive. And he has a gender clinic in California after his name, Benioff Children's Hospital Gender Clinic. And he invests in the fertility market, the technological reproduction market. And they're not alone. This is this is what they're doing.
Mark
and
Benioff.
It sounds crazy. It sounds crazy to people who aren't paying attention to the broader picture. But I've been taught to pay attention to the broader picture as well as the minutia, because I'm a painter. I'm a portrait painter. I've learned how to see. And I've stepped back and I've done the research, and this is what is being presented. Now, when people tell me, oh, that sounds so crazy, I'm like, you think this sounds crazy? Try this on. Men can be women if they say so.
Yeah.
And we're going to change the world to accommodate this thought process. That is what's insane. And I can tell you now, governments, politicians, international law firms, international corporations are not going along with this because of a few people's, feelings about their identity.
Mm.
They do not give a crap about your gender identity. They give a crap about dissociating you from sex reality because it's going to be profitable. It's profitable for the market for you to be deconstructed, as a human being, as a sexed human being. It's integral. You're much more profitable that way than you are as a wholly sexed human being.
Mm.
And this is the way you open markets. I mean, part of it being under the LGBT banner is also, opening markets in sex identity. You can't get any more sex identities out of a sexually dimorphic species than heterosexual, lesbian, gay, and bisexual. Where are you going to go with that? This is a $3.7 trillion market.
Whoa.
This space, this lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender marketing base, $3.7 trillion. That's a lot of capital. That's a lot of power to cross market to other industries and corporations. You go on with, you get on board with this gender identity crap, and we're gonna send our constituency to your company.
Mm.
But it opens markets in sexual identity. Lesbian, gays, and bisexual civil rights movement was basically colonized during the AIDS crisis, by the medical industry, and pharma was profiting big time from men getting sick from AIDS. Now, when AIDS was brought under control, woo, that's a lot of bank going down the drain. What are we going to do now? So then the next issue was gay marriage. And in 2000, late 90s, early 2000s were when the two big kahunas, this is when AIDS dissipated, the two big kahunas, the LGBT organizations, which were then LGB organizations, came up in the United States. right? And so, and they start to promote gay marriage. Now, as a liberal, a once diehard liberal, I thought, I was like, yay, of course we support this. Gay marriage, of course. Couldn't be civil unions, had to be marriage, right? But what this was tying gender ideology to our political apparatus, right? So once they secure gay marriage, then the T comes in, boom. And now we start to deconstruct sex via gender identity, right? So you really have brought in a fox into the LGBT henhouse here, because you can't be same-sex attracted unless there's sex, right?
Yeah.
Sexual dimorphism. It's so much insanity, and it's really, really hard for people to understand what's going on because there's so many tentacles. It's a real hydra. And but once you start to look at the money and the industry, and I did that early, so I got clear really fast. And for me to just get people up to speed, because I didn't really have a very big platform, to get people up to speed that it was big pharma and the medical tech sector behind this was just, it was, pushing a boulder up a hill. I was considered a conspiracy theorist. I still am, because now I've moved the goalpost, because the transhumanist element is really the big kahuna,
Well, it's
moving
like,
us out of our biological sex reality into, whatever. I mean, just imagine, what does that mean? You don't have sex for procreation or intimacy anymore. You just, it's just for kicks. You go get your baby in the factory. We're not dissociated enough, right?
tell me about it. It's kind of like the opioid crisis as well in America with OxyContin. People didn't think that there was a problem. And the ones that actually voiced the concern that, hey, it's Purdue and Big Pharma, they're the ones that is pushing it. They're killing millions of Americans, and they were shut
Did you see Dope
down.
Sick?
I did. I loved it.
Oh my God, it was just incredible, right? It was incredible.
So good.
Rinse
Such
and
a good.
repeat.
Sorry?
Rinse and repeat.
Rinse and repeat. And they're doing the exact same thing, just on a much larger scale, and they're involving kids. Now, Big Pharma is involved incredibly and enormously, and you have all these billionaires that are funding not just the research, or lack thereof, I should say. It's not really research. It's more just give them cross-sex hormones, give them something that their body isn't naturally supposed to have. That's changed the narrative in political areas. Like you look at some people that talk and they stand up in political spaces, and they start going, like, who is the rest of society to say that this person can't live the way they want to live? Like, just leave them alone. I'm going, hang on a minute. They don't want that. They want complete control. And the politician has got no right to say we should leave them alone, because they're the ones that are indoctrinating and going to little kids and telling little kids that, hey, you're born in the wrong body. You can change. They're the ones going on social media and spreading all these messages around to little kids that are seeing it that don't even know how to comprehend all that stuff. And I wonder how many politicians are actually being paid to say this. Like, I wonder how the level of corruption that I've been seeing, Jennifer, at the moment is absurd. It's absolutely outrageous, but I'm smart enough, and I don't care if people call me a conspiracy theorist or not, but I've seen just trends and signs.
Isn't it great when you don't care? it's so liberating.
I wish.
I just don't give a shit.
I wish I didn't care, but the fact is I do. Like, I want to help young kids that are being indoctrinated like this, but do you foresee an end at all? And if you do, what does that end really look like?
I have to be really, really honest. I don't really try to project, an end or no end to it. I just, it's kind of like when you're in hell, keep moving.
Yeah.
Somebody gave me that advice once about a completely different issue. And I was like, oh my God, that's like a gift. When in hell, keep moving. Because eventually everything ends, right? Everything moves, everything goes away, something else takes its stead. And that's the universe, that's everything, right? Movement. So when in hell, keep moving. And, I think that people have to understand that they're really fighting for their lives with this issue. Lots of people think it's a fad. They think it's just going to go away on its own, or it's just a social contagion, you know? Um, it will eventually play itself out. But, and it may stop at the level of mauling children, medically mauling children sex, but, or it may not. It really depends on us. We are really at a crossroads here, and we have to, we have to stop this. We have to find a way to reconnect with each other, reconnect with our children, get them off of tech. You have to get them away from tech. You have to get them re-immersed in their bodies, and for yourself, you have to realize that resistance is a love story. It really is. It's exhilarating to tell the truth in a sea of lies. It really, really is. It's amazing. It feels wonderful. I sleep well at night,
Mm.
And I'm calling out the truth all the time. People have said to me, oh, they might murder you, I'm like, well, everybody's going to die sometime, I mean, I'm 65. The fact that I made it this far is awesome. What are they going to do to me? I don't really think about it. It's just tell the truth.
Mm.
And the more you do it, the more you want to do it. It's fun. It's exhilarating. It's great. Just tell the truth. People are so afraid of telling the truth. What might happen to their lives? It's like, well, do you ever think about how your life might look if you do tell the truth?
Yeah.
It's really pretty great. And
Then,
people who tell the truth tend to hang out with each other and support each other, and that's really great too. I've lost friends over this, and I've made new friends, better friends.
yeah.
Better quality of human being.
When I started speaking out about this issue, I mean, I was scared at first because, like, it's a huge controversial issue. I don't even know why it's considered controversial now. It shouldn't be, but it is, just like so many other issues in today's society. The more I would speak out, the more I would start getting death threats, the more I would start getting all these hate messages from people I didn't even know. And it was like, am I going to stop speaking the truth for the sake of these people trying to silence me? Or am I going to continue speaking the truth because that's my values? That's the right thing to do. I chose the right thing to do because I sleep better at night. I also know that I'm on the right side of history with this. People that are butchering and mutilating children, innocent children, they're definitely not on the right side of history. They may try and convince themselves that they are, but they're, again, living in a delusional lie. And that is sad. And so, I am enormously grateful for you and your
Thank you.
research. And I don't know if you saw this. You probably did, but there was a person on Tucker Carlson's show that was basically regurgitating all of your research and giving you no credit for it. Did you see that?
I did. I really reacted. You know, uh, immediately when I saw people in my Twitter feed going, "Oh my God, this person has, stolen Jennifer's work, and he's plagiarized her, and on and on and on." And I was like, so I started to retweet those tweets, and then I looked at a couple of little snippets, and it seemed like he was, sort of appropriating my work, and I was really pissed off because it's happened to me before, um, and actually direct plagiarism, and so I knee jerked on that, But as I watched the whole video, I realized he was just really promoting a lot of the same issues. I mean, he wasn't really plagiarizing my work. I think that people were so pissed off, and so was I, because Tucker Carlson framed it like he was the first person to really do a forensic analysis of the money behind transgenderism or synthetic sex industry. And I totally get that, because I mean, here I've been doing this research for like 10 years, and this guy's never written a thing about it, and nobody even knows who he is, like, who is this guy? Where did he come from? Who hired him? And why is Tucker Carlson saying that nobody's, tackled this issue when, my friend Kara Dansky's been on his show like 4 times, and she's mentioned my blog, like probably every time she's been on there,
Yeah.
and that I follow the money. So for him to not know that is, as a big media guy, it's silly, he does know. So, so then it became like, well, why is he doing this? But was it direct plagiarism? No, it was not. But I just let people just take off on what they were doing, because it's like, I'm not going to control this at this point. I just got off of social media for a couple of days. I was like, I'm tired. I can't, and yeah, it was unfortunate because, he's got a very, very large platform. And had he put me on, I could have gotten a lot of information, out to a lot more people. Thank God for Megyn Kelly,
Yeah.
And she had decided to put me on a while ago. And we've been like 3-4 months now, them canceling because of the news cycle, like, oh, I've got to cover this, we got to cover this. Finally, they said absolutely, absolutely, and then the whole Israel thing broke out. It's like, oh, I guess I'm getting I'll be shoved off again, but they didn't. They said, come on. So that was great. Now a lot more people have information that they can work with and they can talk about, and it seems to have resonated for a lot of people. So I'm really, really grateful. And she was such a great interviewer.
Yeah.
She really was. She was a great interviewer.
I loved that conversation. I listened to it this morning, actually, and I was like sort of preparing myself and going, no way can I match up to Megyn Kelly with my conversation. She's a star when it comes to that sort of stuff. I go, I'm going to try my
You're
very
asking
best.
such different questions, so it's great.
Yeah, that's what I noticed as well. I want to ask you some different questions and not like sort of follow along with the same sort of style as Megyn Kelly, but I'm not Megyn Kelly, so I can try my best, but I kept hearing on different episodes people that she'd have on that were talking about the transgender issue. They would say, have you heard about Jennifer? Have you heard about Jennifer? And she was going, yeah, we're going to get her on. We're going to get her on. And I was like, so when are you going to get her on? Like, I'm waiting for it. And then finally it dropped. And I'm like, yes. It's brilliant. But regarding the whole Tucker issue, the good thing with that, I mean, well, not really a good thing, but you being on Megyn Kelly knows Tucker, and hopefully that might start getting the ball rolling, and Tucker Carlson can see your work, and even Kara Dansky as well, who I've had on this show twice now. Love her and her work too. We've had some very cool conversations. But I wanted to ask you about
The Abolition of Sex. Great book.
Fire.
Great book.
Absolutely fire. I even made a video when she went on Dr. Phil, and she has that one scene I just love. I don't mean men. I don't mean men. I'm just like, that's perfect. Just such a brilliant line.
I can see,
And
I mean, because I know her, I can see the smoke coming out of her ears.
she was, I
Like
think she was rather
the
tame.
ridiculous, the ridiculous play that we have to participate in just to get information out there. You know what I mean? Like, you just can't come up on stage and just say, this is crap.
This is crap, and here's why it's crap. Let me show you. No, we can't do that. It hurts somebody's feelings. We can't have that. God forbid that we have someone go, my feelings are hurt. I mean, grow up. There's been a couple of times where I've done certain videos. I don't know about you, Jennifer, but like I've just gone off. Like I've let my anger just get the best of me. And I'm going, this is so effing stupid. Just stop it.
Well, I mean, I watched Kara on that show and I was like, oh my God, how is she doing that? How is she maintaining composure? Because I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't.
There's probably
I
a
know
reason why.
where I'm good and where I don't go, I know where I don't step.
It's probably a reason why I haven't been asked onto any major show to talk about this issue or to debate it, because I'll probably like unleash. But speaking about, I guess, the insights that you've been able to give so far, especially with the Jeff Bezos scenario. And funny story, I was actually meant to speak to Mark Benioff from Salesforce, and
Really?
I
That
was
should be
I was
interesting now.
I was speaking to his team, and this is before I started speaking out about the transgender issue. I don't think that they're more than likely say no to me now for sure. But they were relatively keen. And the hoops that I had to jump through just to have a conversation with this guy, it was incredible. And they sort of left me in the lurch for a long time, and I never bothered following up. And I'm glad that I didn't bother following up. Thanks to your research, I'm going, oh, probably a good thing I didn't actually speak to him or promote him on my show. So,
No,
but
he definitely won't come on now if you put this up.
definitely not. Definitely not. But that's probably a good thing. I don't think I want to have him on now. But is it just those two, or who else is there that you've found?
Well, in terms of billionaires supporting both the gender industry, the clinics, and big fertility, the reproductive, tech reproductive market, I'm not sure. I haven't found any others in my travels. There are certainly other high-powered people talking about the deconstruction of reproductive sex, like Peter Tatchell in the UK. He's a big gay rights activist, and he did a TED talk actually talking about how sexual orientation morphs into the deconstruction of reproductive sex, male and female. And that's where they're going with this, And then there's Petra de Sutter, who is the Deputy Prime Minister of Belgium, who's also done a TED talk. He's a man pretending to be a woman and appropriating womanhood for himself, talking about technological reproduction and where it's going, where it is now and where it's going, basically into the transhumanist realm. And then, of course, you have Martine Rothblatt, who is an American entrepreneur, lawyer, head of a biopharmaceutical corporation, has a 3D organ printing company and a xenotransplantation farm. He's invested in artificial intelligence and wants to is creating legal structure for artificial intelligence as persons. He made a robot of his wife, created a robot of his wife. He believes that he's implanting her consciousness into the robot. He believes that what he calls fleshism um, is constrains humanity, that we have to reach beyond fleshism, and that we will. And he's the author of the first gender bill. He got together with a whole bunch of other transvestic and transsexual lawyers in the UK, and they formed a coalition to create legal structure. So he authored the first gender bill that all, as a template for all of the other gender bills. And so the gender thing is really not about free expression. It's about transhumanist augmentation and getting legal structure in place for that. And so giving robots, basically cyborgs, rights. And this is why the whole construct of the transgender person is important, because it gives the illusion that there's another type of person, other than a male and a female. Right. So this is really important for these rights, and to tie that to our political apparatus and our legal structures. Right. And so this is what's going on here. And he wrote a book actually about transhumanism being the on-ramp to, transgenderism being the on-ramp to transhumanism. And he goes around and he lectures about this, and he's a big presence at Out Leadership, which is the business networking arm of the LGBT lobby. And once you see this character, you can't unsee him, but he's sort of, he's rather stealthy about what's going on here. He's also written about the future of technological reproduction and virtual realities. And he has a whole history with William Sims Bainbridge, who is works at the Human Cyborg program at the National Science Foundation, which funds like 25% of all the science projects in the United States. And this guy, William Sims Bainbridge, has studied Scientology and all these other cults and mind control and all sorts of gaming and artificial intelligence. And so Bainbridge's techno utopia transhumanist visions sort of met Rothblatt's fetish of owning womanhood for himself. And so now these are escalating into basically a religious cult that is indoctrinating children over technology to the idea that they can transcend their humanity, their sex humanity, through technology and pharmacology, and eventually transfer human reproduction to the tech sector.
This is crazy stuff. I'm speaking with someone tomorrow, actually. His name's Joe Allen. He wrote a book called Dark Aeon.
Joe Allen, I just listened to him. He was in a conference with the transhumanists, debating the transhumanists. What's her name? Natasha Moore and her husband, and another woman, and So it was very, very interesting. And he was great. I love Joe. He's wonderful.
I'm actually
he's wonderful. His book Dark Aeon it is so good. It is so good.
I've been reading it in preparation for our conversation tomorrow, and yeah.
Good. I can't wait to listen to that one.
That one I think will be an amazing conversation. Like
me too. I think
this one has been an amazing conversation for me. To
finish this up, me too. It's been fun.
I've really enjoyed this. I'm going to have you back on again so we can dive further into your work and your research. We've got so many more questions, but so little time to actually get to it all. Jennifer, to sort of end this conversation off, where do you want people to go to find your work, your research? I'm pretty sure all my audience knows, but for those that don't, where do you want them to go?
Well, first, I want to thank you so much for having me on and for sharing this time with me and for doing what you're doing in the world. I think it's amazing. It's really, really great. And the way that you're doing it is really wonderful. Storytelling is something that is missing from our lives. And yeah, so people can go to the 11thhourblog.com, and the 11 is numerical, and I have a Substack. And that's under my own name, Jennifer Bilek's newsletter. Yeah, so that's where I write.
Well, I'll make sure that everyone knows where to go. It'll be in the show description. And you're right, stories are important now more than ever before. The right kind of story that we need to be sharing, not the wrong one, because they are incredibly powerful and they can move and change nations, as we are starting to see more and more of. So, Jennifer, thank you so much for your time today, your wisdom, your advice, and for joining me on the Storybox podcast.
That was wonderful, Jay. Thank you so much.